Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. In today's video, we'll be doing this month's edition of Stash Dive, hosted by Poet Spice. And if that is of interest to you, please stay tuned. All right, so every third Friday of the month of 2022, Poet Spice is hosting Stash Dive, where a bunch of us are going to be using things that have been in our stash for more than 6 months and just being creative with some of the things, sort of like a use your stash kind of mentality. So for this month, I thought I would show you how to alter a notebook. Now in the video, I won't be giving you any kind of dimensions because really that's not what's important. The only thing I would advise is whatever notebook you do choose to use, make sure the cover is not plastic. Now, although this cover is a bit shiny, it is still paper, and so the adhesives that I am using will still work. If you're using something that's sort of vinyl or plasticky in nature, then it could be rather difficult to get something to stick to it. And really, we're not altering the contents of it, we're just kind of decorating the notebook just to make it a little cuter. Some things you could use with your altered notebook is you could turn it into a journal, junk journal, you could use it as a craft fair item, you can give it as a favor, or if you have kids, maybe a back to school party or Halloween party, depending on the kind of papers you use. But it's just a fun way to take a very plain, hopefully inexpensive notebook and just zhuzhing it up a little bit and making it prettier. Now this one, I did pick up at Daiso. So this is a new acquisition actually specifically for this video, but this paper here and then all of the supplies I'm using, I've had in my stash. This actually belonged to my sister. So it's nearly 10 years old at least, because she did pass away nearly 10 years ago. So we're going to be just using this, and I'm going to show you the easy way that I generally alter notebooks. All right, so we're going to pick a paper in here. And I actually like this one, but I will be using it vertically, and so the text will be wrong. And I think this one is kind of nice for the cover. Yeah, so I am going to use some double-sided adhesive. There is a binding on here, and I actually want to keep that. So I'm going to get as close to that as I can. But if I don't get all the way to the edge, I'll show you how I'm gonna kind of deal with that. Again, I'm not making this to be a heirloom, keep it for a million years kind of purposes, but I do want it to hold as best as possible, although I may not want to have to. And then I'm going to take some glue. This is actually art glitter glue, but I'm just repurposing the monoliquid glue, that bottle that I had, and I'm going to put it in the space between where I put the adhesive and this binding right here. Again, it doesn't matter the size, it doesn't matter the kind. You can use this with composition notebooks, but outside of the US, I have found that's difficult. I didn't realize that. I thought composition notebooks were just standard around the world, but apparently it's not. But if wherever you're at in your local dollar store, Dollar Tree, Poundland, Aldi's, all of these places that don't exist here in Hawaii, just check out there to see if you can just get a paper covered notebook. Again, nothing too expensive, especially if you're making a lot of these, and then just go from there and use your paper. Now this is an 8.5 by 11 paper pad. If you were getting a bigger notebook, you may want to look at maybe like 12 by 12 paper pads. Although, depending on some coloring books that you have, if you have coloring books in your stash, you may want to go through there, tear out some pages that might fit, and then use that Because again, the art line of a black and white page could be very striking, or it could be something that you could actually color if you wanted to. So here's where I'm going to try to be a little careful, and I want to kind of mitigate how much I'm cutting. So I want to kind of butt this up against that seam and kind of make it straight on the bottom, and then just kind of press that in. So the glue to the edges will just hopefully make it so this doesn't lift. Of course, I could put washi there if I wanted to. I don't think I will be. And then just press that in. You could use a bone folder or whatever and kind of burnish that in. But again, I'm not going to be too precious about this. And I'm going to cut this down here. Now, if you wanted to, with this overhang, you could actually fold it over and make a little side pocket, but I'm just going to cut it as flush as I can. It's always difficult for that little strip right there, but if you are careful and you go slowly, then it's not hard to cut off. And there's a little bit of overhang, but not enough to warrant me having to change that. And that already just looks really pretty. Now, depending on the binding or how the notebook is constructed, this first page generally is a throwaway page for me. In composition notebooks, it doesn't do this, but like in some of my journals, it does, where the glue is on this front cover. So I'm more inclined to just glue this down, because I don't like how that sits. Depending on what you're using, or depending on if that bothers you or not, you may just want to leave it. But I'm just gonna kind of smooth it down. And then the inside of my notebook has a lined page. I can write notes or what this is about. I did do some of the prep work already because I didn't want this video to be too long. And so I just used another sheet of paper and glued it on the very first page, because I am going to make this as a divided notebook. But I wanted to show you that, again, depending on how I'm working on this, it doesn't always turn out perfectly. And for my purposes, since this is just going to be a little notebook that I have, I'm just going to color that gap in where I didn't actually put it far enough down. And I mean, now that you know it's there, you'll notice it. But otherwise, I mean, again, it's a notebook. It's an altered notebook. This is not going to go into a museum or anything. I did already do one back here. I did not count pages. I just like, okay, that looks like a good section. And then I glued a page in. I made a tab. And then I also covered this back page here with the exact same method that I just showed you. And then with the scrap, I just added a pocket in here. And I'll show you how I'm going to kind of update this right here. But to show you how I did this here, I'm just going to flip through another section, make them kind of even. You could count it. It is 60 pages. And you see how this page kind of sticks to this page. I'm going to use this page right here just so that it opens nicely. And this is the front cover that we used. I'm just going to use this. My edge here is not that straight, but actually we're going to be okay with that. And we're going to do the exact same thing, but I'm not going to butt this right up against the spine because it will affect how this opens and closes. So I am going to just put it really close to that. And for these inside ones, again, I just wanted to adhere it. It's easier for me to adhere it, put the adhesive on the actual page than there. And then that way I don't have to be too concerned about placement. And for the others, I only put it top and bottom. You could put more, but Again, I don't need this to last forever. I just needed to be cute for a little while. And just like with the cover, I'm going to try to place this so I'm doing as few cuts as possible. It doesn't bother me that there's going to be that hole right there. And you wouldn't need to necessarily use adhesive, because if you are doing this for a craft fair or doing bulk for like a party or whatever, you do want to keep your costs low. However, if you do use wet glue, then you will need to be aware that some of your paper can buckle. If you use like a glue stick, then you might not get the buckling, but I wouldn't be able to tell you how long that would actually last. When I watch a lot of crafts of people who are doing like junk journals and whatnot, they do use a lot of glue sticks, but I don't know the longevity, if it'll start to come up, if it'll start to yellow, if it'll actually affect the paper. I couldn't speak to any of that. But if you are making this to sell, then you may just want to keep that in mind. Okay, so I have offcut of some of the other things that I've done. So I've already measured what the tab that I created before, and again I just cut it, put it down, and figured, yep, that looks good. And so I've got one here, and then again with an offcut of something that I did previously, just to make so that this video wasn't too long, I'll make a third tab. And again, not going to get too precious about this. I wouldn't even necessarily need, for at least my purposes, to have all the tabs match. It just happened that I had a strip that I thought would be sufficient and I could get 3 tabs out of it. And so for this one, I'm going to kind of eyeball this. And with I specifically am using wet glue because I will have a little bit of time to reposition. I just want to make sure my overhang is about the same. And just eyeballing it to the one down here. And then I'm just going to press this together. The thing about art glitter glue is that it does dry quickly. It's not super quick, but it does dry quickly. And I was making sure that I only grabbed one page on here, and so I have a nice little tab there. Then I'll go to the page that I just did, and because it's going to be the middle one, we'll just use the tab and just glue it over that little hole. But again, either I could color that in if it super bothered me if I wasn't doing tabs, or I can just cover it up. And so same thing, I'm just going to put some glue on the inside. It will spread a little bit, so I'm not going to be too concerned to get all the way to the edges. Again, I want to make sure I only have one piece of paper, and measuring it, kind of eyeballing. That's kind of the middle, and that's kind of the same placement as the other one, and then pressing that together. And now I've turned this into a decorated 3-tab notebook. Now, what you might want to do, depending on how you're storing this, and depending on what you're using it for, if you're making it as a gift or craft fair item, then this essentially is done. You could add some interesting elements there. You could add some more pockets and whatnot. But if you're making this for yourself and you already know what your subjects are going to be, I chose 3 because it's simple. You could choose a lot more. Once you've either written on that or put a little label, then just to make it more sturdy, you could actually put either clear packing tape or just clear like Scotch tape over it, and then that way it sort of laminates your tabs and doesn't make them as breakable. As you can see, this notebook itself was not rounded, and so I'm not rounding anything. That is purely an aesthetic choice. And then just to finish up the video, because I did not cut this with a paper cutter, my edges are not straight. This one does not bother me. This one does not bother me. But this here, you can really tell that it isn't a straight cut. So what I'm going to do is just put some washi down. I don't want to get higher than that. I do want to put a bead of glue down. The washi is adhesive, but this will just make it stay a little longer. And this one was just right above me. So I'm just going to use this one. I probably would want to coordinate more, although this isn't that bad. And I don't want to go above the pocket, but instantly that will give me a straighter edge. On the side there. Of course, that's bothering me now, so I'm just gonna cut straight across. Again, not too precious about it. I don't know what looks better, that or the way that it was. And then just to make it look intentional, put one down here. The bottom is actually more straightish than the side was, and so this just makes it look like it's part of the design element rather than to square anything up. And that is as simple as that. All right, guys, so this is my little altered notebook. Again, you could go as ornate or simple as you want. You can use whatever papers in your stash. You could use pages that you've colored. You could use uncolored pages. You could use magazines. Again, whatever you have on stash to make this to what you want it to be, I think would be great. I do have a 3-tabbed notebook now. Very easy, very coordinated, because I did use a coordinated paper pad. I do have a little bit of a pocket right here. One bit of advice: if you are putting in pockets, do not use adhesive, use glue, because once you glue it down, if you stick things in the actual pocket, that should keep as a really good boundary. The thing with adhesive is it can over time lift, and then whatever you're sticking in there could actually stick to it. So specifically for pockets, I would recommend a wet glue, but for the majority of this, adhesive, as much or as little as you want, does help, because it does go farther and it doesn't buckle as much. All right, guys, well, I'd love to know what you think of this. Let me know in the comment section below, and as always, aloha.